What's poppin', everybody? This is the cartoon kid Ray Rollins, and today I got a nice modern day SpongeBob SquarePants review for you guys. It's kind of modern day, man. I kind of want to call it a classic, but you know how the rules go with that, man. At least the rules that I created. Or rather, I guess you can say this whole SpongeBob community created. Seasons 1 through 3, I kind of want to consider 4 in the whole classical era of SpongeBob, but either way, we're pretty close to that. We're dipping into Season 5, Episode 13, Part 3, called Blackjack. If you guys been watching the channel for a while, you guys know how I do this. Before I start breaking this episode down, I'm going to have to give y'all that episode breakdown. This episode centers around SpongeBob's cousin, Blackjack, getting released from prison. At the beginning of the episode, we have no idea what Blackjack went into prison for, but when SpongeBob is sitting on his little chair reading his letter, you see SpongeBob have just instant regret as soon as he finds out that his cousin's being released. And this is when we start going into whole flashback scenes of Blackjack beating the ever-living hell out of SpongeBob, jumping rope with his body and shit. Listen, Blackjack was not playing with our spongy homie, man. Blackjack essentially tortured our little spongy homie, which kind of has SpongeBob afraid of him. And SpongeBob is thinking, he's like, man, all that stuff happened when we were kids. I can't imagine what he looks like now. And then you go to another flashback, or maybe you can call it a thought bubble or whatever. You see this big buff ass, I don't even know what you want to call Blackjack. He's not a sea sponge like SpongeBob is, at least I wouldn't say so. He's kind of a fish of some sort. You know, it kind of makes me wonder, why the hell does no one in SpongeBob's family have the same look as him? You know, they're all sea sponges. You would think, or well, they're supposed to be all sea sponges rather. So you would think they have the same shape, color, and even look of SpongeBob, but the only character of SpongeBob's family that looks somewhat like him is his cousin, Stanley SquarePants, which actually might be another episode I should review in the future. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. In short, Blackjack tells SpongeBob that he's gonna go visit his parents, and SpongeBob thinks that he has to save his parents from Blackjack, because Blackjack tells him that, hey, if you want to come save them, you gotta face me one-on-one in a wrestling match, essentially. So that's the summary of the episode. SpongeBob thinks, and I use that word very heavily, that Blackjack has kidnapped and probably is torturing his parents. So SpongeBob wants to go face Blackjack in a wrestling match. So SpongeBob is basically going all throughout Bikini Bottom, visiting his relative's house to try to track Blackjack down and save his parents. So that's it for the summary, man. Now, I'm going to start breaking this bad boy down. Man, rewatching this episode today made me think back to when I first saw this episode in 2008 or 2009. I was a young kid back then, man. I had to be like maybe 11 or 12 years old. And I remember watching this episode for the first time. This was a fairly interesting one. I kind of enjoyed it. And I'll be honest with you, I still enjoy it today. I know I'm kind of giving a little spoiler for my review portion of the video, but you know what? People can say what they want about the newer episodes of SpongeBob, how everything past Season 4, or hell, even Season 4 itself, anything past Season 3 of SpongeBob is absolute garbage. Like, that's what the majority of the SpongeBob community thinks. At least that's what I've seen. And I could be wrong about that, but Seasons 1 to 3 are considered to be the golden years of SpongeBob, and anything past that is pretty much frowned upon. But I think there are some gems even in Seasons 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, you know, all the way up to the present day season. Granted, you know, most of those episodes may not be great. I'll kind of quickly be the one to admit that. Not all episodes of SpongeBob past Season 3 are fantastic, but there are some gems in there. At least I do think so. And this episode, I think, is one of them. I'll speak on that a lot more in my review portion of the video, but let's start talking about this episode and breaking this bad boy down. First thing that I want to say, and it's kind of a small little stupid moment, I just love how at the beginning of the episode, when the postman drops the mail off at SpongeBob's house, you know, he slides it through a slot and it falls onto the floor. Gary comes, bites down on it, and hand delivers it to SpongeBob. That's some cool ass shit, man. Shout out to Gary the Snail. He's a dope ass character that I feel receives his fair share of love from the SpongeBob community. and watchers of the series. But Gary is a dope-ass pet. I wish I had a pet to do some shit like that. Granted, they wouldn't be able to get into the mailbox, and I probably have to get like a slot in my door for the mail, and even if I did have a little slot in the door like SpongeBob, you know, that really wouldn't help much. Only if the mailman was delivering UPS packages. Hey, yo, Gary, go get my UPS package for me. That's something small and kind of stupid, but I wanted to point that out because that's the first thing I thought when I rewatched this episode today. The second and main thing that I want to focus on is the whole portrayal of Blackjack. You see Blackjack portrayed in this episode to be this crazy, evil villain, right? And as I said, we don't know what crime he commits at the beginning of the episode. We find out later, but all we do know is that Blackjack was this mean, torturous brute as a kid, and he used to beat up our spongy homie. What I love about this episode especially is that it is played up so damn well, man. You have SpongeBob show us in a flashback what Blackjack looked like as a kid. He towered over SpongeBob, and he was even somewhat muscular as a kid. SpongeBob then proceeds to have a flashback of what Blackjack may look like in the present day to show a real menacing, hulking brute. And yeah, I know I said flashback. False words alert. After reading this letter, SpongeBob goes to his parents' house to face Blackjack, and you see his parents' house crossed off or sealed off with caution tape. And SpongeBob assumes that it's crime tape. So SpongeBob busts up in there to see what has happened with his parents and Blackjack. He sees that the furniture's all covered up in plastic and whatnot, and even his family portrait is broken, in which he thinks Blackjack did that. He finds another note at the scene. Okay, you know, since it's supposed to be a crime scene, I'm going to say the scene. He reads Blackjack's note, which basically said that Blackjack and the parents are going to go visit the grandmother's house, right? And I'm just going to add here real quick that all these notes, even though I'm paraphrasing the hell out of them, are written in a very menacing, threatening manner and can easily be taken out of term to be threatening. And if you've seen the episode, which I'm sure most people have probably, and you know exactly why I'm saying that. So SpongeBob shows up to his grandmother's house, right? The same grandmother who was cooking him those cookies in, I want to say it was season 2. And he thinks that grandma was burnt to a crisp. SpongeBob starts crying over her burnt up body, or what he thinks is her burnt up body. And then he hears her voice, and he finds out that his grandma's not dead. I really just love here how he says,
"Grandma, are you talking to me from beyond the beyond?"
Well, if you mean from beyond the kitchen table, yes.
That just straight murders my soul, man. I love that shit. I don't know why. That's just hilarious to me. But his grandma basically says that Blackjack had some loose ends to tie up, okay? SpongeBob's mind immediately goes to him cleaning up the torture and probably murder of his parents. And his grandma tells him that Blackjack said, hurry up and get to his house or he's gonna miss all the fun. So SpongeBob's thinking that, hey man, I need some help for this. I can't do this on my own. You know, SpongeBob isn't the whole warrior type. So he goes to visit his uncle, Captain Blue. And this visit to me with Uncle Captain Blue really sealed the deal for me as a kid, making me think that, oh man, this Blackjack guy, this man is not nothing to play with. SpongeBob really has a challenge against him. So SpongeBob shows up to Uncle Captain Blue's house, and Captain Blue pretty much, I don't want to say tricks because the old man probably has some hearing problems, but I'm going to say it anyway, tricks him into doing hours upon hours of chores, right, for the entire damn day. SpongeBob is doing lawn, building fences, trimming hedges, and all types of shit for Uncle Captain Blue. But the main meat and potatoes of this scene here is when SpongeBob basically tells him, Uncle Captain Blue, man, I need your help. Blackjack has my parents held hostage. He's probably torturing them and this, that, and the third. I need your help to save my parents. And this, to me, is what seals the deal on Blackjack being this ruthless villain as this whole episode has been building him up to be. Uncle Captain Blue said, man, you're not cut out for this work, man. I'm not cut out for this work. I'm too old. I'm retired from the crime fighting life, so to speak. Hell, he even calls Blackjack a ruthless miscreant. He said, they let that ruthless miscreant out of prison? And he basically tells SpongeBob that, you know, you're not cut out to deal with people of the criminal mind type. You're not cut out to deal with them, man. And this is like the little icing on the cake. This man says, do you know what those type of people do to people like you? And SpongeBob says, they're not the type of people to give you a push on the swing set. Captain Blue's like, man, try imagine walking without legs, arms, and a body. Just the way that he says it and SpongeBob's facial expressions just change. Man, that just seals the deal for me, man. I'm like, oh shit, Uncle Captain Blue speaking some real shit here. So Captain Blue's like, man, listen, I can't help you. But the number one thing or the main thing that I can do is I can give you a ride to Blackjack's house, which really only happens to be next door. And this is kind of the real icing on the cake here that really just like seals the deal. As soon as SpongeBob gets out of the car, boat, whatever you want to call it, Captain Blue's like, man, can you make sure you lock the door behind you, kid? SpongeBob locks the door. Blue just takes off and comes back to his crib. His house that's next door to Blackjack. And SpongeBob walks up the stairs, and you see that Blackjack lives in this creepy-ass house with a mean-ass guard dog or worm, whatever you want to call it. SpongeBob walks up the steps, knocks on the door that has like a skull and crossbones and whatnot on it, has this thought of Blackjack just breaking through the door, grabbing SpongeBob, yanking him inside on some straight-up kidnapper type shit, which makes him have second thoughts about trying to save his parents. He's getting ready to walk away when he hears glass breaking and his mom screaming. SpongeBob busts up in there on some Rambo shit, heads down to the basement to find his parents, and he picks up his mom. He's like, come on, let's go, let's get out of here. And this is where everything just unfolds with Blackjack being this ruthless criminal character. Blackjack wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He essentially was having a party, a celebration, to celebrate his release from prison. This is where SpongeBob's parents explain that the whole crime scene, or caution tape rather, that was at their house was for the fumigators. The portrait was broken because his mom dropped it. And Blackjack even renounced his criminal ways since being released from prison. And this is where we finally find out the crime that this man committed. The crime was littering. Something so simple that we all done in in our childhood years and probably even now. I haven't littered. But this ruthless, villainous miscreant that has been built up throughout this whole episode littered. That's what he went to prison for. Maybe he did some other ruthless shit that wasn't touched upon in this episode. I'd like to think so, especially since you can't go to prison for littering. You probably get smacked with a fine in the real world. SpongeBob's mom basically talked about how Blackjack has been talking all day about wanting to play with SpongeBob like they were when they were kids, when they wrestled and whatnot. And this is when Blackjack finally emerges to face SpongeBob one-on-one. You hear the gigantic ass footsteps, which, thinking about it now, when they do the big gigantic footsteps during each and every cartoon, you notice how you see the screen shake to resemble the earth shaking in a way whenever a giant being approaches. This didn't happen in this episode. And maybe it did. I'm probably misremembering. But I don't think it did. No, it did not. It did not happen in this episode. So you hear the giant footsteps. Blackjack appears out of nowhere to be this big halting brute that SpongeBob imagined. He essentially called SpongeBob a punk, called him a little man. He always backs down from the fight and whatnot. And SpongeBob says, you know what? It's time for me to man up. I'm putting my foot down. Let's go. And this is where Blackjack and SpongeBob charge toward each other. And the true form of Blackjack's character is revealed. Blackjack is this little ass plankton-sized being. He's not the big gigantic brute that SpongeBob had always thought of when he was a kid. The reason why this monstrous character was even thought of was because SpongeBob was so terrified of Blackjack as a child that his fear transcended into adulthood. And because SpongeBob has never seen Blackjack grow, he always had this idea that Blackjack would be this monstrous figure that, we've seen countless times throughout this episode. But in reality, Blackjack can't even lift SpongeBob up. To attack him, Blackjack just pulls off SpongeBob's sock and shoe. And SpongeBob is laughing at this man. He's like, Blackjack, man, you haven't changed a bit. And this is where the episode ends. Everybody's laughing and having fun and whatnot. Which I gotta say is a fantastic way to end the episode. Listen, let's get down into this review portion, man. Because I'm ready to talk about this bad boy. as I was saying earlier, my first impressions, everyone seems to dislike almost every, I wouldn't say almost every episode, but a main majority of episodes past season 3. Some may even say that SpongeBob lost its magical formula, I guess you could say, that made it so great after season 3. While there are some very eye-rolling episodes like A Pal for Gary, the episode where Patrick goes to work for Mr. Krabs and falls all over the place, those 2 episodes I probably will review very soon. The Splinter, and countless other episodes that were like, man, what the hell happened here? And even the idea of some characters losing their magic, so to speak, and I mean that in a figurative way, like Patrick. When me and my buddy Alex did these reviews together, our whole main thing was to compare classical Patrick to modern day Patrick. Classical Patrick used to be this idiot savant. New Patrick is just straight up idiot. The picture that I'm trying to paint with these examples is that a lot of people have the idea that SpongeBob has gotten worse over the years. They had that, I call it the Simpsons effect. First few seasons are absolutely great, and the series has been going on for such a long time that it just loses its appeal. It's not as great as it used to be. It became watered down, so to speak. Many people have their own different opinions and theories of how SpongeBob has fared over its lifespan. But the one thing that I never understood, and it's not true, I'm sure that not everybody says this, but the main thing that I don't like about downplaying a series, even though you think most episodes are, kind of meh, is when people completely give up on the series. I get not all episodes past a certain point may not be great. You're going to have those, as I called it, or said it earlier, eye roll episodes. But man, there can be some serious gems in some of these seasons. Hell, we're in season 12 right now. Think back to season 11, Squid Noir. Fantastic. Karen's Virus. I think that was fantastic. Even Karen's Baby. That was another fantastic one. The freaking My Leg episode, man, where we finally meet the My Leg guy. That was a freaking banger, man. I love that episode. And yeah, you can say that's because some of the old writers were coming back, whatever. But even in most seasons, man, you can come across a few good episodes. And I feel like this was one of those for season 5. The number one thing that separated this episode from most throughout the SpongeBob series is that this was a dark-ass episode, man. And yeah, there's been a few dark episodes of SpongeBob, but this was a really dark one. We have this convict coming fresh out of prison who SpongeBob really believes murders or is even torturing his parents, man. For a kid's show, for a TV Y7, I think it's rated, type of show, that's some dark shit, man. And that, in my opinion, gives it a nice, different, unique feel and separates it from a majority of the episodes throughout the series. SpongeBob, and just like any kid's cartoon series, is supposed to be fun, happy, and lighthearted. This was a freaking mind-bending episode. And what I like about this is that Blackjack, and I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it once again, Blackjack has been built up to be this ruthless-ass bully towards SpongeBob throughout his childhood. SpongeBob's grown up now, and so is Blackjack, but Blackjack apparently hasn't grown an inch. SpongeBob can stand up for himself and take on Blackjack now. The idea of Blackjack being this big, ruthless brute was only conjured by SpongeBob's very overactive imagination. But in reality, Blackjack's not shit. He can't even pick SpongeBob's leg up. Only thing he can do is take off his shoe. This episode teaches kids, at least in my opinion, to stand up for themselves. Even though you may be scared of your bully or whatever in school, or even if there's someone like your brother who likes to bully and whatnot, stand up for yourself. Don't take that shit. SpongeBob was afraid of Blackjack through this entire episode, but in the end, he stood up for himself. He did not let Blackjack push him around. And, that lesson could help some kids, and it may not help some kids, because unlike SpongeBob in this scenario, some kids may have a bully that's actually bigger than them, and who may do way more damage than Blackjack ever could to SpongeBob in the current day. But to sum it all up, this episode is dark, way darker than a majority of the episodes throughout the SpongeBob franchise. It has a very convincing plot line that holds very strong for the entirety of the episode, that essentially gets undone in a nice and understandable way. And most importantly, it teaches kids a valuable lesson of no matter what happens, man, stand up for yourself at the end of the day. Be like SpongeBob when he faced off against his cousin Blackjack. Stand up for yourself. You may be afraid, but don't let anyone walk over you. So, despite what people may think of this episode, I haven't seen any reviews on it, but I really do want to see some now. So after I finish recording this review, I will check out some other reviews of this. But I'm going to have to hit this with a nice, strong 7.5 out of 10. I know that's a pretty basic neutral rating somewhat, but this episode, I feel, for what it was a fantastic episode. Good plot, good lessons, good villain, I have to say. So I feel like it's very, very deserving of a 7.5 out of 10. Maybe I even hit it with an 8, man. Either way, this was a very enjoyable episode. And shout out to Nicktoons Network real quick for playing SpongeBob at night, man. Because that's where I seen this. I rewatched it again this morning before doing the review. And I just loved how, as a kid, I was totally fooled by this plot line. I remember seeing little Blackjack at the end. I was like, oh, man, they got me. They got me good. But overall rating, man, 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. This is the Cartoon Kid Ray Rollins, and that has been my review of SpongeBob SquarePants Season 5, Episode 13, Part 3, Blackjack. Tell me what you think of this episode, man. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me if you hate it. Tell me what you would rate it. Toss all your opinions down in the comments box below. And until next time, I love y'all, and I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Peace out, everybody.